Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Pei Jen Lin, and I'm a first-year pharmacy administrative resident at Houston Methodist Hospital in collaboration with the Houston program. So as part of the Project Management TED Talk series brought to you by the Houston program, I will be covering the final part of the initiation phase of project management with the TED Talk series. So in the first two parts, Drs. Amanda Beck and Ann Lee covered how to start a project and planning for the project, and basically of how to formulate a well-developed plan before you execute your project. So I want to quickly review those points before I get started into my section. So utilizing the 7 habits of highly effective people in your practice will definitely help you throughout the project's life cycle. Starting with the why and communicating to your project team of why you want to start the project, your vision for the project, will really help to ensure that your project has a positive outcome. So we then also discussed the different methods of brainstorm, which is key in promoting and supporting innovative ideas for the project. Getting stakeholders buy-in early on will also help to ensure that your project is supported both financially as well as by the institution if that's the project that you're working for. Remember that your project is only going to be as successful as the team that you build for it. So you want to build a project that is ultimately the dream team for ensuring that your project will be completed effectively. And then we then talked about the triple constraints. And the triple constraints refers to how a project has factors that are impacted by time, scope, as well as finances. And to ensure that you account for all of the factors of a project, it really helps to define your scope, develop a scope statement, then develop a project baseline, which will help to support a comparative group for performance measures and how you're going to manage variances of your project. And then you can work to have a WBS or work breakdown structure, which helps to hold people accountable and helps you as project manager to isolate barriers in your project. And then finally, you gather your entire project team and you have a kickoff meeting. Okay, so now that you have your kickoff meeting, you're pumped, you're excited, you have all of your planning documents completed, your stakeholders are all on board, you're about to execute your project. You have a vision in mind, you know exactly how the project's going to go, everything's going to go according to plan, you have the finish line in mind, and you know that the outcome is just going to be fantastic. And what would you say can help to ensure that? What is the most crucial success factor in project management?
Effective communication.
Marcy, that is correct. It is effective communication. So, effective communication is important for us to understand as project managers and is vital to the success of the project. The Project Management Institute, otherwise known as the PMI, releases an annual survey from project managers that highlights trends in project management. And this report is called the Pulse of Profession. And they have identified that effective communication is the most important factor in ensuring that the project is completed on time, that's completed at all, and also within budget. And so when I think back to projects that I've worked on, the recurring theme is always communication's key, communication's key. And over again, the feedback is always on how communication could have been improved in translation constantly. And so this entire presentation will be based on how do we effectively communicate our projects to all the stakeholders as well as our project team to ensure that we reach our end goal for the project. Okay, so first, before I dive into the methods of effective communication, I want to start by defining communication. And naturally, we think about the second definition displayed here, which is a verbal or written message. But I really wanted to focus on this first definition displayed here, which is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, and behavior. And I wanted to focus on the word behavior here, and I found it interesting that they use it here because it definitely impacts how a message is going to be delivered, how it's going to be received, and ultimately interpreted. So why should we care about effective communication? I mean, you're the project manager, you're progressing your career, you have all your planning documents in line, so really all you have to do is dictate to your team members what to do. Wrong. That is not the right method to effective communication. Um, According to the Pulse report released by the Project Management Institute, 1 out of 5 projects is unsuccessful due to ineffective communication. And for every $1 billion that is spent on a project, approximately $135 million is at risk. And half of that, which is $75 million, is at risk due to ineffective communication. So now we know why we care, or why should we care, but who else cares about this? Should only project managers care about this? Should only the people on the project management team care about this? Who cares? So in the 2010 Strategic Initiative Study released by Forbes, this is a collection of 180 interviews that were conducted on CEOs as well as senior leadership executives, focusing on strategies that influence the corporate's success factors as well as what led to their failures of their strategic initiatives. And the results of the study show that 92% of CEOs believe that communications is a critical factor to the success of their initiatives. And so what I found most surprising is that from the study, the #1 initiative to improve project outcomes is to place emphasis on communications. And so from this study, it tells me that organizations recognize that effective communication leads to more successful projects. Okay. But what kind of impact does effective communication have? And according to the study, it also shows that highly effective communicators are more than 5 times more likely to be high performers than minimally effective communicators. And I think it's really important for us as project managers to recognize that we understand how to communicate effectively to ensure that our projects are completed on time and we achieve the goal that we want. Next one. Okay. So communication tips. Many times project objectives and timeliness are not effectively communicated to every team member. I can count many times when I was on a project where I feel that communication could have been translated more frequently or more effectively. And so these are tips for you as project managers that you can take and to help close the loop between how communication is not translated effectively. So the first one is close the communication gap around business. So it's your responsibility as the project manager to ensure that the communication from your stakeholders to your project team members are all where everybody is on the same page. The next one is tailor communications to different stakeholders. And this is something that I naturally do where I'll tailor my communication depending on who I'm talking to and what message am I trying to send to the person that's receiving the message. Understand that the project is not always going to be perfected overnight, or that project management is not a skill that you can just obtain overnight is also key to your success as project manager and how you lead project management initiatives. It takes patience, it takes experience, and also takes practice. Understanding the use of standardized project communications and using them effectively will help to ensure that your project is achieved effectively. So that means using the project planning document, using formal communication document, and sending those as frequently as you can as it pertains to your project can ensure that your project stays on goal with the timeline that you set out for yourself. Do any of you guys know who this person is? I see some nods. So this is Julian Treasure. He is a well-known TED Talk speaker on communications. And I really like this TED Talk. It was my very first TED Talk that I listened to. And this was on how to speak so that people want to listen. And he really focused on how powerful our voices can be. We can start a war with our voices. We can also start expressing on how we feel about somebody, i.e., I love you. And he talks about different reasons of why people don't listen to us. But I really want to focus on these 4 points that he recommended on how to speak so that people want to listen. And the acronym spells out HAIL. So H is honesty. So be clear and be straight in your message. Don't let it be convoluted. Authenticity. Be yourself in your message. Don't try to be fake because people can recognize that. Integrity. Be your word. Say what you mean and mean what you say when you're delivering the message. And then love. Ultimately wish them well in the person that's receiving the message. Okay, Crucial Conversations. How many of you guys know what this book is? I've read it. Oh, more than half of the room. So if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It is actually the most recent book that I've read. And as project manager, you'll definitely experience crucial conversations at various points of your career as well as throughout the project. And so for those of you guys who may not be familiar with crucial conversations, crucial conversation is a discussion when occurs between two people or more where the stakes are high, emotions run strong, and you have opposing opinions. And it's really important for us to understand how these things happen or recognize when they happen so that we can manage these situations much more effectively. Otherwise, it can have negative outcomes on your project. So commonly, there are 3 ways in which we handle these crucial conversations. 1, we avoid them. 2, we face them and handle them poorly. Or 3, we face them and handle them well. And so the rest of the presentation will talk about how to recognize these crucial conversations and to hopefully handle them well. Because I know I myself am guilty for experiencing all 3 of these for various projects. So the first part is understanding how do crucial conversations happen. And first, naturally, our biological response is to have a fight or flight response. And we do that anytime that we feel threatened, depending on if we don't feel that our point's getting across or we're having an opposing opinion from the project, from a project manager, a member, or a stakeholder. And these are the reasons why we handle crucial conversations poorly. 1, being that we want to save face. 2, we want to avoid embarrassment. 3, we want to win the conversation. 4, we just know that we're absolutely right. Or 5, we just want to punish others. And this is a quote from the book. People who are most influential, who get things done, are those that have mastered crucial conversations. So you might ask yourself, well, Pei Jen, how do I handle crucial conversations well? Well, let me tell you. You start with the heart. And what that means is that you really want to clarify what you want out of the conversation. And this next slide. So these are questions that you can prompt yourself when you recognize that you're in a crucial conversation. And it really starts with understanding what you really want for yourself, what you really want for other people, what you really want out of the relationship, and how would you change your behavior to ultimately get the results that you're wanting. And although this is something that is very hard naturally to do, but if you are able to trigger these questions in your mind before you handle the conversation, it can really help to clear a vision and then perhaps hopefully change how you would have responded in that situation. And lastly, I want to leave you with this quote. At the core of every successful conversation lies a free flow of relevant conversation. And so remembering your goals and using effective communication will allow you to be successful as a project manager and be the change that you want to see